Recommending books to people is a really tricky thing. Like, if I put Sylvia by Leonard Michaels in your hand and you read it and don't like it, we're probably still going to be friends. But if I put a book that's 1,000 pages in your hand and you spend a couple months of your life reading through it, it's just a big ask. So this video is one of a regular series where I look at the thickest spines on my shelf and ask myself two separate questions. One, did I like this book? And two, is it worth it? Now, I'm a Brothers Karamazov truther. I've read it 3 times. I'm going to read it a 4th time later on this year. And one of my favorite translations is the Ignat Asby translation. So I was really excited to pick up a Ignat Asby translation of another of Dostoevsky's novels, The Idiot. The Idiot was Dostoevsky's attempt to tell the story of a positively virtuous person. What would happen when you take this naive person and put them into the materialism and the corruption of the Russian society that Dostoevsky was seeing all around him? I tell people when you read Dostoevsky, you're not crazy, he's crazy. The characters are crazy. Everybody overreacts to everything. If someone goes to the store, someone will throw themselves on their knees and be like, why must you say this thing? For once said, a thing cannot be unsaid. Explain why you are going to the store positively and leave nothing out. I mean, it's ridiculous, but you have to love it. But in the case of The Idiot, I just didn't. There didn't seem to be any sort of plot that Dostoevsky had in mind. It felt, again, it's like a fan, not a scholar. It felt like he started the book trying to figure out what it was. And at the end, he said, instead of, let's go back, let's really work with these characters, figure out what I've got here, he just said, I'd rather move on to the next thing. I think I've learned something through these characters. I want to go write something greater. That problem is all over the novel. There's all sorts of just weird non sequiturs. Not just in the way people talk, but in the way they act and even the way the language is structured. There are a ton of examples. Just to give you one on page 372, apparently I broke when I was reading this novel because I wrote in the margins, I'm so frustrated with this book. He's not going anywhere. The general says, come with me so that we can talk. And then coincidentally, it turns out they're walking the same way, so they randomly decide to strike up a conversation. The idiot feels 100% unplanned. No sentence is ever connected to the sentence prior. Now, there are moments in this book that I loved and I learned something in. There are discussions of suicide that I thought were super poignant. The end felt like it wanted to be poignant, although I'm not quite sure I understood it. But overall, did I like this book? No. Was it worth it? Not really. I just think almost every other book that I've read by this author is better. A couple months ago, I published a book where I talked about the 11 or 12 books I've read by William Vollmann and discussed which one I would hand to somebody if they said, hey, where should I get started with this author? In that stack, I mentioned I own Fathers and Crows, but hadn't read it yet. Well, now I have. It is almost 1,000 pages long. It's an absolutely brilliant book. This book is part of the 7 Dream Stories, in which Vollmann looks at various collisions between European explorers and the tribal people living in the Americas. Specifically in Fathers and Crows, this was mostly the French explorers, the French missionaries, and the Jesuits, who came over not looking for gold, not looking for beaver skins, but came over looking for souls, believing that the more they suffered and the more people who they converted to Christianity through that suffering, the nearer their relationship would be with their God. This book pulls no punches. Nobody gets out scot-free. The explorers are mostly like greedy, awful people. The missionaries are driven but verging on craziness, although if you really believe if you don't convert people, they're going to go to hell, you have to extend them some sympathy. And the Huron and the other tribal people, there's obviously a respect here for their mysticism, their relationship to nature, their traditions upon the soil, but there's scenes of cannibalism and torture that are absolutely gut-wrenching. In my prior video, I talked about how Dying Grass was probably Vollmann's greatest literary achievement to date, but then my personal favorite of his books, and especially the 7 Dream series, was Argle, because I just love the weird tone of voice he established. I think Fathers and Crows succeeds on both those accounts. It has a consistent tone. It has some of the postmodern elements from like The Rifles that I loved, where he brings past and present together, sometimes in the same sentence, trying to collapse time a little bit. And of course, it has all the historical detail that he is famous for. So did I like this book? Absolutely. Is it worth it? Yeah, absolutely. I still think if someone had never read Vollmann before, something like Europe Central might be a better place to start. because it's not one cohesive story. There are different stories in there, and you can kind of restart the experience and really think about your relationship with the author. But as a piece of literature and as just a masterwork, as a great American novel, Fathers and Crows is absolutely worth the effort. And last, I'm going to look at 2666 by Roberto Bolano, which clocks in at 990 pages. Bolano is a Chilean author. He also lived most of his life in Mexico and in Spain. And in his work, those two things come together: his love for his culture and his love for literature. A lot of his books are about different people eager to establish some new form of language, some new form of poetry, but who find themselves pulled into the political or revolutionary fever of their times. Now, 2666, I'm a little torn on whether it deserves to be called a novel. This is, in fact, 4 distinct novellas that tell 4 separate stories that are loosely connected by some characters you may have met before, some places that he returns to over and over again, and also certain themes. The centerpiece is a novella about Santa Teresa in Mexico, which I think is supposed to be sort of a stand-in for Juarez. In this city, hundreds of women have gone missing over the years. And soon, this story devolves into just a list of carnage, where he's just telling you atrocity upon atrocity upon atrocity, almost like he's trying to numb you to the idea of violence, and then ask you to consider, what does it mean if we just don't care about these people anymore? Around these, there are stories about different poets and literary critics and translators who are all searching for love and searching for some sort of authenticity through boxing, through their literary criticism, and through their love lives. Now, did I like this book? Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the most interesting authors. He died in 2003, so it's fair to say he's one of the most interesting modern authors out there. And despite the fact that some of his sections kind of drag or not a lot seems to be going on, he seems to be telling really important stories. So did I like it? Yeah. Is it worth it? That's a trickier question to ask. And it's not that 2066 is not a great novel. It's just there's so many other places to get started with this author. By Night in Chile, Distant Star. There's lots of really short books that give you a similar insight into his world, into the way he blends language, the pursuit of language, and culture to make stories that feel important of this time and maybe for all time. So if it was me and I was doing it all over again, I probably would have picked up one of these books first, but I guarantee after reading it, I would have gone on to read Savage Detectives and 2666, because Roberto Bolano absolutely was one of the greats. If you like novels like this, please consider checking out my novel, The Nihilisticats. Indie Reader just named it the Pop Culture Novel of the Year. The Nihilisticats is a novel about right now, at this exact moment in history. The Nihilisticats is about a world where people are searching for identity and get met with identity theft. They're searching for reality and get met by deep fakes, and no matter how far they try to dig into their own lives, all they find is conspiracy after conspiracy after conspiracy on every level, governmental, criminal, and corporate alike. The Indie Reader judges said it is over-the-top fun and that nothing is off limits. Check it out. Thank you for watching.